Where did you grow up and how did you become a free runner to a drug runner?
Today's guest, we've got Nick Capo.
Mr. Nick Capo.
Nick Capo.
Traditionally known as the art of movements, the ability to get from A to B as efficiently as possible. Just running away from the police and being a nuisance and running across rooftops, being chased by horses and helicopters, like you name it. If you want to do well, you've got to take steroids. Yeah. So I'm taking steroids, and then I started selling a couple of steroids onto a couple of lads that I knew. I buy a little bit extra and sell a little bit extra, and by its very nature, I'm mixing in darker circuits again. Exporting and importing steroids, sleeping tablets, pharmaceuticals. Right, let's export cannabis, let's export methadone, let's export ecstasy. Between 15 and 20 grand average on a week profit from 3 text messages a week.
Into your own bin, into your own pocket.
Put my car in storage, went into hiding. They were coming to get me. A couple of months went by, nothing. And I assumed at that point they were just bluffing.
You said there was 20 undercover old Bill waiting for you.
She was undercover.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the uniformed officers rushed.
They all come in. When they rushed you, what was going through your head? Nick, welcome to the show, mate.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, mate. Really looking forward to this one. And I want to roll all the way back. Where did you grow up, and how did you become a free runner to a drug runner?
Well, I grew up in Merseyside. My journey from free runner to drug runner. Well, my journey to free runner started when I was about 11, 12 years old. I was troubled youth in school. Just didn't conform with that standardized education model whatsoever. And school I took a lot of time out of school, and this kind of predated where they started to really enforce the truancy measures. So they pretty much let me get away with wherever I wanted to. So I didn't spend much time in school. And it initially kind of started where we'd go out and make a nuisance of ourselves and deliberately try and get chased by the police. Like, there was no meaning to it at first. It was just, right, where can we go? What can we do to cause trouble? I should go and be a nuisance. And we became skilled at A, knowing the landscape and the environment that we were in, and B, being really efficient at getting from A to B, knowing where all the shortcuts were, knowing how to climb up the side of buildings, knowing how to really run amok of the police. And it wasn't until maybe 2 years into that a good friend of mine discovered a video on the internet of something called parkour, or free running as it's commonly known today. And it was a sport or an art or a discipline, whatever you'd like to call it, that originated in a few miles south of Paris.
Yeah.
And it was traditionally known as the art of movements, the ability to get from A to B as efficiently as possible. And this is using the urban landscape as your theatre. And it wasn't until we found these videos that we found a little bit of purpose in what we were doing. So it escalated from just running away from the police and being a nuisance and running across rooftops, being chased by horses and helicopters, like you name it. We had the whole shazam, and they hated us because we were so good at what we did. We get up the side of a building, across the building, onto the next building, and disappear down a drain pipe before they'd even knew where we went.
Quality.
But then that evolved really quickly from something that was obviously detrimental to develop how we were developing at that age, to something that became really disciplined really quickly. So we found this video. This would have been in the early days of YouTube. So in fact, it might have predated YouTube. I think this was
What sort of year are we talking here?
So we're talking, in fact, you know what? This would have been a couple of years before YouTube. So there was different live video streaming services at the time. I forget the Mega Upload and some other ones that there was, like way back in the day. So this would have been 2003, 2004, so a few years prior to YouTube. Yeah. And we find these videos online, and these guys are grown men. We're only young teenagers at the time, 12, 13. And these grown men are like moving beautifully across buildings. And one of the original founders, a guy named David Bell, did an advert for the BBC. I think they shot it in London, and it was beautiful. This guy must have been in his late 20s, big strapping guy, like absolutely ripped, beautiful physique. And he's running across these rooftops and scaling buildings that you've never seen before. It was truly beautiful. So we knew that there was something more to come of what it was that we were actually doing. And it wasn't until about a year later, after we'd gone onto the internet forums, and we kind of built a community online, way before social media. And the opportunity came up for me to go and travel to France. I was 14 at this point, and my relationship with my mum had there was no relationship. She let me do what I wanted to do. School let me do what I wanted to do. So I was I had that freedom. I didn't have a whole lot of guidance. I didn't know, there was no parental guidance whatsoever. There was no, male authority figure in my life. Dad left when I was like 2 years old. So I could have gone any direction at this point. As I say, I had a lot of trouble in school. And then this opportunity come up to go to France and meet up with a guy over there that I'd met through these internet forums. And he'd have been 26, 27, maybe. I'd have still been 13, 14 at this point now. And he was from North Carolina in the States. And I'd arranged to meet him, and I'd made some money online playing a game that's similar to World of Warcraft. It's like an online Dungeons and Dragons, World of Warcraft type game, where I'd basically been catfishing some guys who were related to the royal family in Qatar. Big money, and I was pretending to be this female character. And yeah, I ended up...
What was her name?
Jess was her name. Yeah, and I'd actually stole from an MSN address I found on the school bus. I found their MSN address, stole their pictures, pretending to be this Jess, and played these guys along for weeks, maybe months. 13 at the time, by the way.
Yeah.
And I come up with fabricated this story of, look, I'm going to have to stop playing the game, spending time with you guys. I've got to take up a job to pay for my university fees. I'm not going to be able to play with you anymore. And obviously, these guys are living in, I think it was Qatar anyway. It was somebody somewhere out those ways, and they had big money. I think they were first cousins or second cousins of the royal family. So you're talking big money, and the concept of them playing with a British attractive white woman was a big thing for them. So when I said, look, I'm taking time away to play this game, it was, well, how much do you need? Oh, well, I need $2,500, $3,000 to pay for my university fees, or whatever story I'd fabricated at the time. The guy was just like, no problem. What do you mean, no problem? I'll send you money. I'll send you extra £500 as well to buy a webcam. Because obviously this predates smartphones and everything else. So you could get away with more then, do you know what I mean? Yeah. If you had the gift of the gab, if you could articulate yourself, you could get away with it, a little bit back then. And that was the first time. And I remember him sending me something like £3,000 via Western Union. I was only like 13 at the time, and that was like, wow. Yeah. You know what I mean? I've come from absolutely nothing. Do you know what I mean? Getting £1 off a relative to go and get a portion of chips from the chippy's a big deal at this point. And so all of a sudden I've got this £3,000 that I had sent over in my grandmother's name, because I told the guy I'd lost my passport, something else. And I'd done a couple of them scams afterwards in the early catfishing days, but this gave me the money and enabled me to then go to this trip to France. So it gets taken down to London. One of my older friends in London, I bunked the train down to London. I don't remember why I bunked it, because I had the money, but you're young, you do what you do. We gets down to London. My friend bunks me onto the Eurostar, because I think I needed somebody over the age of 14 to get me onto the train. So I end up on the train. I'm on the Eurostar on my own. Gets to Charles de Gaulle, and then had to navigate my way to this rural town, maybe 10 miles south of Paris. So coming to Charles de Gaulle, and this is like, at this point, I'd never really been anywhere at all. I'd never been on holiday with mum, never really been out of Merseyside. And I guess to Charles de Gaulle, and there's double-decker trains, and there's security guards traveling around in packs. And, I was one of the only, once we got into the rural areas, I was one of the only white people there. So, I'm this little white kid, 13 years old, strolling around, doesn't speak the language. There's gangs everywhere, security guards, everything's in a foreign language. But somehow I managed to make it to this little town in this suburb of France called Nice. I get there and meet this American guy. He's obviously a lot older than me, and we just by chance met up. We were training on like an outdoor rock climbing wall that had since been closed down. I think somebody fell and 2 people died in the early 90s, so it's fenced off, but the wall's still there. So we were free climbing this, this giant, the Dame de Lac, it's called, the Lady of the Lake, huge sculpture. And we're free climbing this, no ropes, no nothing. And we just by chance happened to bump into the founders of parkour, these French guys. And we spent some time with them, and it's a very community-based sport. Like, everybody encourages each other to be better and be stronger. There's no kind of me versus you, you versus me. It's not like a traditional sport. It's very much, you need to get better so I can be better, because if we're at similar levels,
can push each other.
Exactly. Yeah. So there was that really strong community element to it, which I think is what really drew me to it. It really kind of resonated with me, because I'd never really had any kind of bond like that with anything. So we spent some time with these guys, and obviously my experience in this sport was just running from police. We meet with these guys, and they're running conditioning drills in the park, press ups, on each other's shoulders, doing squats, lunges, going out at night time at 2-3 in the morning on like stealth ninja missions, climbing up, like 15-story buildings, ninjaing past people's bedrooms whilst they're in there watching television and stuff like that. So So it really kind of, I come away
mad
from
sport, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mad sport. I watched it on YouTube before you came in. So I was like, people are climbing up walls, jumping over buildings and landing like Superman or something.
Yeah,
isn't it?
It's
Madness,
a beautiful sport
yeah.
to watch.
Yeah.
It is beautiful, and it takes a lot of discipline, and it's evolved a lot since the early days when we were there. But I come away from that trip. I was in France for about 2 weeks.
What was the point of that trip?
The point for me, I think, was just, it was impulse initially. It was just, something exciting. Let's go. Let's do it. What I brought back from that journey was not what I expected going on that. It come to be known as like the Mecca, the pilgrimage that every kind of free runner does. You go back to the heart of the sport. You see where it all, it was founded and developed. But at that time, it was just, I'm 14. I've got a bit of money. This guy from America has asked me to meet him in France. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go. There was no more thought to it. And the transition from the person that I went there as, this immature kid who was just, wanted to cause nuisance all the time and had no real guidance, just them 2 weeks alone with these guys who were super disciplined and obviously were a lot older than me. By the time I come back, I had a completely different mindset. I felt like I had some purpose. Do you know what I mean? I always knew that I was enjoying what I was doing, but I was doing it for the wrong reasons and seeing it in a nowhere near as productive a way as it could have been. And then spending time with them guys, I come back and I was like, right, this is it for me. This is really it. So I put a lot of time in from then onwards, from say about 14 onwards into this sport, give it my everything, developed a really good skill set, put together a really strong team. And then by the time I was 16, and school had really endorsed my desire to do this, to the point where my school calendar literally said I had 4 days penciled out of school to go free running with friends. That was quite literally what my school, what the school schedule said, the official document, free running with friends. We get to 16 and that's when it really started to boom. That's when the corporate entities and the media started to take notice of what it was that we were doing, and we landed our first local newspaper and then our first national newspaper, and then we buy a camcorder and we're putting videos online. And it takes off, absolutely takes off. And there's only 2 teams in the country at this time of any kind of skill that you could apply to like a commercial job. And that was our team in Liverpool and another team in Basingstoke.
And did you call yourself anything?
So we were called Apex Parkour, and the guys in Basingstoke were number 3 run. It's great guys. We get on with them really well. So we were kind of the powerhouse of the north. They had the south, and because it was such a new sport, there wasn't really any competition. And this appetite out of nowhere came for all the big brands. Like, we want a piece of this. This is the new cool thing to do. Channel 4 does a documentary with some of our friends, Jump London, I think they called it. And from there, it just exploded. And we were 16.
I remember.
This was come absolutely out of nowhere. Yeah. And we had a website at the time. I'd put a basic template together. I'd spend all night on the internet trying to work out how to do, this, that, and the other. So we had a website. I had my emails set up, and then all these emails start coming in from these big companies, Red Bull emails, Adidas emails. And I'm trying to navigate my way through these emails and pretend that I'm a 30-year-old professional, and I'm having to Google certain words they send to me. And I remember we did a job for Adidas, and they're sending me an email over saying, you need to send us over the invoice. I didn't know what an invoice was at the time. I thought they meant receipt. I was like, I'll send you a receipt once you pay me. And they're like, no, you need to send us the invoice. And there's the back and forth. I've still got this thread of the emails, 5 or 6 emails of me not understanding what an invoice was. And they must be thinking, who's on the other end of this email account? But we started getting flown all around the world, doing huge jobs all across America, all throughout Europe. We were out in Dubai, Qatar. We went absolutely everywhere. And this is before we'd even hit 18. So we're doing music videos, we've got national press. It was huge. And this predates social media. So it was...
What, mid-2005, 2006?
Yeah, so this is between 2006 to 2008. So this is just as we're coming into the dawn of YouTube. Yeah. And obviously that, again, just amplified everything tenfold.
How good were you?
You
personally, how good were you flying off walls and jumping off buildings and landing and feeling safe? And
I was good, but I wasn't the best.
Okay.
But my team were the best.
Yeah.
And it would be a lie of me to say I was the number 1, I was the best.
Yeah.
I wasn't. Out of a team of 10, I'd probably sit at number 5, somewhere in the middle. Okay. But I was the only one out of everybody that had any business savvy whatsoever, or at least any desire to push it that way.
Front.
Yeah, basically, yeah. I could talk crap. Because a lot of the guys and a lot of the people that it really appealed to were very much like the nomadic hippie type, like one of my good friends from back in the days, Daniel. He was the best in the world.
Where's he from?
He's from Liverpool.
He's from Liverpool,
Daniel Labaka, yeah. And he's huge. He was so talented, like natural. He's half Chilean, and his genetics just lend itself perfectly. Yeah. And he moves like a monkey. It's like you could just watch him all day long. It's like art. You know what I mean? It just comes so naturally to him. But the kind of ethos that he had, the mentality he had towards it was very. I don't want to say rock star. More of like, I don't want to sell out. I'm not doing that. I'm doing this for the purity of it, which is beautiful.
Yeah.
But at the same time, a lot of them would do that to the detriment of their own lifestyle. Do you know what I mean? They wouldn't have enough money to eat, or they wouldn't, so somebody needed to kind of steer the way a little bit, a compromise between, right, we can still keep our values and we can still take on a little bit of work as long as we're selective about what it is that we do. And we did really well out of it. And this went on we probably got 4 years out of that commercial success. And then I got to 20 years old and I suffered with a really bad injury to my knee. So at this point, I go to see my doctor and he said, look, Nick, you've got 2 choices. You can either carry on training, carry on performing the way that you are. You'll maybe get another 12 months out of it, and then you'll inevitably need surgery. And then from that surgery, you're going to need 3 years to recover, maybe more, 2, 3, 4 years. Now, he suggested you can take a year out, do the necessary rehabilitation, give your body some relief from the stress, because obviously it's a lot of heavy impact jumping off rooftops, because we're doing big performances and big shows. You're talking 15, 20-foot drops to concrete over and over and over again. And obviously you train yourself to mitigate what that does to you, but after so long, you get your natural wear and tear as you would with any sport. So I made the decision then to go, right, well, I want longevity in this. This is the only thing that's really given me any guidance through my life. I need to do this properly. I need to be mature enough to say, right, take some time out, manage the team, go from there. So I took some time out. I was maybe 2 months into this rest period. And I'm going out on training sessions and it's just depressing me so much. I'd go and see the lads and we used to train for like 10, 12, 14 hours a day, because it would be a mixture of climbing and jumping and conditioning. And then when the sun goes down, we'd do night missions, which, we're climbing, the front faces of really high buildings and, really kind of disciplined, both physically and psychologically. But to go out and just be a spectator for 12 hours a day whilst everyone else is bettering themselves, and
it's going to eat away at you, isn't it?
It does, yeah. And you get a degree of satisfaction watching your teammates succeed, but at the same time, and I don't mean in a jealousy aspect, it destroys you, as it would for any sports person. Once that is your purpose and you lose that, and then you're watching everybody else around you still getting that, that same level of progress, that same level of enjoyment, and it started to really eat away at me. So I frequented our training sessions less and less. My productivity on our business emails and stuff like got less and less, because even though we were taking jobs on, I couldn't attend. And I did a few jobs where I just went and did the choreography, but it's just not the same.
Give me an example, Nick, of when you're saying you're taking jobs on with Red Bull and Adidas and whatever. Were they paying you as a team to be there?
Yes.
So they're paying you a 10 to turn up and say, well, we want you to be jumping off this so we can use this for adverts? Or use it for what?
So there was a mixture. So we did a handful of music videos. We did a lot of like store openings. So we did like a store opening for Decathlon in Dubai, or we did a shoot for Adidas in London to launch one of their new trainers. And, we did a lot of stuff with like Henleys and GeoJoy for JD Sports. And it was all marketing stuff for them. They get a ton of photos and videos that they can use of ours. We did a big video for Nokia for one of their new video phones. This was kind of, this might have been 2008, so you're talking early iPhone days, and Nokia were really trying to push the quality of the video on their phone. So they paid us a ton of money to go out and shoot this big video. And it was, we made a lot of money from it for kids of that age. Do you know what I mean? You're talking big money. You're talking anywhere from like £500 to £3,000 per day plus expenses.
Per person?
Yes.
Okay.
And obviously I was taking commission off everybody else as well as for the management side of things. So we were all doing really well, and we were getting more free products thrown at us than we could give away. We were sponsored by Puma for a while. We were sponsored by Converse. And they were just sending us like tons and tons and
Free
tons
stash.
of clothes. Yeah.
Everyone loves free stash.
Yeah. So we were just, and obviously we're council estate kids, so we've got like hundreds of boxes of trainers and we're just giving them out.
Yeah.
It's just what you do, isn't it? So, you know, we had this, you know, we had a great following locally. Community loved us. We got on really well with the police. The press loved us. We just had this really harmonious relationship with our entire borough. And, it, you know, it was something really rare, and I've not seen anything like it since, which is unfortunate, but, you know, it's the world we live in, because our area was desperate for something like that at the time, because we'd lost all our British Legions, we'd lost our youth clubs, we'd lost our community centres. There was no money in the community at all. So there was no direction for kids to take. And we ended up kind of like the Pied Pipers of the area. All the young kids see us doing well, and there's not many people from our area that do well. We're in the newspapers all the time, like, we want a bit of that. So we had, of a weekend, and often weekday nights, we'd have dozens, and I really mean like dozens, like 30, 40, 50 kids coming to our training sessions just wanting to get involved.
Brilliant.
And because of, I mean, I don't really have any religious background whatsoever, and I couldn't say I'm religious, but Daniel, the guy I was talking about, he comes from a very religious family. And, you know, we disagree on a lot of things, but the morals that he brought to the table from that Christian background were beautiful. And that all kind of fed into this give back mentality that we had. So you got gangs of 18-year-old kids in our area, and we're going around doing voluntary litter picks just off our own back, getting rid of graffiti, you know, going around helping people. Like we were just good kids. Yeah. And everyone wanted a bit of that. And if you wanted to be with our group, then you had to be on that same wavelength. So we were taking kids away from what was inevitably going to be a self-destructive path to, right, here's something you can channel yourself down.
Good for you, man.
And it was brilliant, yeah. And obviously when I lost that, I very quickly went down a dark path. So I'm injured, I take time out, I lose interest in training, lose interest in the business side of things. I thought, what can I do to get myself healthy? Right, I'll join the local gym. Keep myself healthy, I can exercise, it's going to keep me busy, you know, I can stay fit. So I joined the local gym, joined the leisure centre, and I was there for about 2 months.
How old were you then, roughly?
I'd have been 19.
19, okay.
And I was quite stocky anyway. I'd always been a stocky kid. So, you know, I had a good frame, and I was athletic from the years of gymnastics and free running. So I developed really quickly. And within about 2-3 months of me joining this local leisure centre, one of the guys looks at me, he's like, you should compete. One of these old school guys, you know, the types. Yeah. And he's like, you should compete. I'm like, compete in what? He's like, bodybuilding. And at the time, I'm 19, I'm bodybuilding. Arnold Schwarzenegger, like, great films. I don't know nothing about bodybuilding whatsoever. He's like, no, you got really good potential, you know, as them old bodybuilding heads do, you know what I mean? Yeah. And then he then introduced me to another gym in the area, which definitely wasn't a leisure centre. It was very, very much an old school 70s, 80s kind of spit and sawdust type gym, you know. Loads of big guys in there, all moody, you know, talking of the old days, the 80s, everything else. So I joined there, and obviously all these guys are... I love
those gyms, by the way.
The classics.
The quality. They're going to be gone soon. We'll be looking back and going, God, those were the days.
The good old days, the golden era. Yeah. So they kind of take me under their wing, and it very quickly goes from, you know, oh, you've got all this great potential. He's like, yeah, but if you want to do well, you've got to take steroids. Yeah. And at the time, I'm like, nah. Arnold Schwarzenegger doesn't take steroids, you know, completely naive to the whole situation, which we'll get to in a little while. It's definitely not the case. Everybody is taking steroids in the industry, unfortunately, well, vast majority. So I then get given some Dianabol, and so I'm taking these oral steroids, and I put tons and tons of weight on, and I'm blowing up really quickly. I responded super fast. Then it goes on to injectable steroids, and I'm really sort of getting into it now, do you know what I mean? And my ego is kind of changing a little bit, and I'm distancing myself from this community group that I had with the good morals, and I'm attaching myself to these, you know, old school bodybuilders, and there's a lot of like old school gangster types in that gym, and I'm kind of coming away from everything that was positive and light and falling into this darkness, because I was quite... I certainly wasn't manipulated, but I was definitely susceptible to the environment that I was in at the time, which I think most people at 19, especially when you're pumped full of extra hormones, is an easy trap to fall into. So I get in with these guys, and I'm maybe 10 months into this now, and I put on like 3 stone, maybe a little bit more. I'm ballooned up. You know, for my age, and this was before bodybuilding and fitness was popular. Like, this is 2011. So I'd have been approaching 21 here. But obviously the fitness boom didn't happen until about 2015. So I was kind of an anomaly in the area. Look at this young kid, look at this big juice head, you know, and we're getting a lot of attention. And then I did my first bodybuilding show in 2012, the British Open, as a junior. Competed as a British junior, won the junior British title. And from there, everything just spiraled, like really, really bad. Like that. the attention I got off the back of that, because I was quite early into the industry, there wasn't loads of people doing that. So I'm getting magazine interviews, and I got sponsorship from Optimum Nutrition, who were at the time were the biggest supplement company in the world. They were huge. I mean, they're kind of still top tier now, but they were number one at the time. All of this is just feeding into this new ego that I've developed, and I'm just fixated on need to be bigger and power and everything, you know, and I was completely fixated with it. And then I was working I took a job at Vauxhall Motors on the assembly line during this time. That's the idea. I just needed something to stay busy. I was like, I'm still taking commission from the lads' work. I had an opportunity to go and work at Vauxhall's. Okay, I'll join there for a little bit, see what happens. So I'm working in Vauxhall's, and then obviously I'm taking steroids, and then I started selling a couple of steroids onto a couple of lads that I knew, because now I was the guy for my age. So if you see me on Facebook, everyone's messaging me, oh, how do you look like that? What do you do? What do you do? All right, well, I can buy a little bit extra and sell a little bit extra, and that'll cover my own usage. And that very quickly escalated to making a contact with someone who was mass producing steroids, and I could get them at a really cheap price wholesale.
And where were they based?
In Liverpool.
In Liverpool, okay.
Just by chance found them on this seedy section of a internet forum somewhere, and it just so happened that he lived within miles of me. Once we'd got down through the chain of communications, we trusted each other. It was, oh, you're only around the corner. So I'm selling wholesale now, and not just locally to the people in the area of my age. I then start tapping into the contacts that I've made around the world from my free running days in all different islands, you know, anywhere where there's money to be made, Australia, Jersey, Isle of Man, you know, the more obscure areas. And it was from there, I left my job at Vauxhall. I was making a lot of money off selling the steroids.
You say you're making a lot of money. Give me an example.
A lot of money to where I was at the time. So probably about $2,000 a week. Yeah. So I've only just turned 20, which...
It's a lot of dough back then.
Yeah, it was, yeah. I mean, we were making fantastic money off the parkour and free running, but it was infrequent. Yeah. You know what I mean? We'd get 2 massive jobs and we'd make a fortune, and it'd be nothing for 3 months. Yeah. Like, there was no YouTube consistent revenue pumping videos out at the time. So I'm making like $2,000 a week at this point. I thought, this is fantastic. And then I left my job at Vauxhall's, and then I started to just fall deeper and deeper into this egomaniac, narcissistic behavior, just, you know, completely off the rails. And I was like, what else can I do? What else can I do to fuel this need for power and attention? And I then decide to take a job working the doors in Liverpool city centre. Didn't need the money whatsoever. And I just bought... In fact, no, it was prior to getting that car. So I've got the job working on the doors, and obviously that, by its very nature, I'm mixing in darker circles again. So, you know, every time life takes a little bit of a turn, it just drops down a level deeper into the, into this underworld. And I'm mixing with these guys who I'd only ever heard about on the grapevine. You know, the people, the old school heads of the era of the area. Mixing in with them, and then it goes from, you know, we're having conversations. Oh, what you do? Oh, you're making money. Oh, I'm buying wholesale steroids. I'm sending them out to Europe and doing this and that and whatever else. And then it's, oh, do you think they'd be interested in X, Y, and Z? I don't know. I wouldn't even know where to get that for a while. I know a guy. You know a guy. Yeah. And it very quickly escalated then to just selling some steroids to some friends, to exporting and importing steroids, sleeping tablets, pharmaceuticals, to, right, I've made this whole new network. What else can we do? Right, let's export cannabis, let's export methadone, let's export ecstasy, let's import, let's export. And this was all in the space of about 12, 18 months. So I've gone from this guy who's come from this community of strong, you know, religious-based moral fabric, you know, community-driven, wants everyone to be better, to, boomf, I'm in the local underworld, dealing with gangsters you've only ever heard about on the grapevine, sending packages all around the world and importing bits from Spain and Amsterdam. And this was in such a short space of time. And you can see just in my physical appearance the difference, and how I dressed and everything else. I'd gone from this, you know, this average looking guy, happy, always smiling, to this 19 stone guy, skinhead, snarling all the time, you know, big fancy silly cars, Range Rovers, whatever else. Like the contrast, you wouldn't even think it was the same person. Now, if I shown you pictures of the 12 month before and after, you wouldn't think it was the same person at all. So I'm mixing in these circles now. I'm working on the doors. I'm sending drugs all about Europe, bringing them into the country, and I'm making good money at this point. You're probably talking anywhere. I mean, towards the end, just before I got arrested, you're talking between 15 and 20 grand average on a week profit from 3 text messages a week.
Into your own bin, into your own pocket.
Yeah, profit. Just for me, nothing else, no one else involved, because the model that I took on, obviously Liverpool is renowned for its drug underworld.
Yeah.
But the vast majority of people mixing and selling and buying and trading in that kind of environment are only making a small amount of profit because there's that much competition in the area. Now, I'd always had an interest in business and how to look at things from a different angle. And the way that I looked at it was, well, our area is saturated, where's not? So I assessed where I had friends in areas where the commodities were worth a lot more than they were in Liverpool. So for argument's sake, if you buy a kilo of cannabis in Liverpool, you'll pay, if you put a wholesale, I don't know, £4,000, you can probably sell it on for £4.5. You're making £500. Whereas if you buy it for £4,000 and you're sending it to Australia, the Isle of Man, Jersey, you're getting £10,000 back.
Yeah.
You do three of them in a week with your eyes closed. Yeah. You're talking big money. Do you know what I mean? You're talking between 15 and 20 grand a week from a couple of text messages and having someone send it from A to B. And that's what I mean. And it escalated so fast, and I had so much money, and I didn't know what to do with it. And I'd not long left my mum's house, and my mum was a carer, and she was only earning 13 grand a year, maybe. I'm making 20 grand a week. You know what I mean? And this is like, well, what do you even do with money like this? I very quickly become numb to everything. Like, nothing was exciting me anymore. Holidays, cars, restaurants, eating out 3-4 times a day, paying for everybody's meals, go out clubbing, champagne for everybody, typical prat behavior, when you're young and your ego gets the better of you. And I lost all them friends gradually, got this new circle around me who appeared out of nowhere. And I didn't see why they were around at the time. I just thought, oh, my old friends just on about what I'm about now. Fuck them, I'm not interested. And I'm now surrounded by all these new friends. And it didn't come apparent until quite a bit later when I was in prison that not a single one of them were friends at all. Yeah. And I got arrested for the first time in January 2013.
How old are you then? 21, 22, was it?
22, yeah.
So you're quite young in Liverpool, serving up, juiced up, on the doors, left your pals, gone into this circle thinking everyone's your pal around you, getting used, and you're using people as well. Yeah. Because it takes two, right? To then getting banged up. What was the moment when you realised it all come on top?
It was the first time I got arrested wasn't actually for drugs. I got arrested on suspicion of possession of a firearm at the start of 2013 because of a disagreement I'd had with a friend at the time. And he'd called the police and said, look, this is the conversation we've had. I know he has access to X, Y, and Z. He's threatened me. I think he'll do it. Police come and see me anyway. Nothing come of it. Next day, they raided my apartment, stripped my Range Rover down to pieces, fingerprint dust everywhere. And that they found some drugs in the back of my wardrobe that I'd completely forgotten about. I think there was about 2 kilos of methadone in there and a load of cash that had been there for God knows how long. I didn't even know it was there. That was what first put me on their radar. And then probably 6 months after that, I get arrested in Jersey. I just split up with I was just having a little bit of trouble with my girlfriend at the time. And we had some business going on in Jersey. And we had some cash we were due to pick up, 15 grand or something. It wasn't a lot to what was happening then, but it was an excuse to go over there and spend a weekend in Jersey. Yeah. So I said to my friend Carl, who I was working on the doors with, and Carl's a monster. Carl's 6'3", 6'4", 20 odd stone, huge mixed race guy. Like, he looks terrifying. Yeah. But if you know him, he's just a cuddly bear. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? There's nothing nasty about him, but he looks the part. Yeah. And at this point, I looked the part. Yeah. And I wasn't the part, because 12 months before, I'm this innocent little kid. So I'm just playing gangster at this point. Yeah. But the assumption is that I fit that role. Big guy, skinhead, lots of money, contacts. It looked like I knew what I was doing. I was way, way, way out of my own league. But you fake it till you make it, don't you? Bravado gets you a long way. So I says to Carl, look, let's go over to Jersey, pick this money up. We don't need to. He was going to post it back. Let's go over there. Weekend on the jet skis. I'm having trouble with my girlfriend. Let's go over. Unbeknown to us, the guy that was receiving for us on the other side was under observation, and they were aware that we were coming over. And it wasn't until we got our deps after we got arrested that I seen that they had surveillance. I was actually getting off the plane. So they knew we were coming before we'd even got on the plane. And we get arrested, landed in Jersey, went to the local pub, sat down with our pal, or at least we thought it was our pal anyway. about to order food. This woman stands next to me, looking sheepish. I thought she was just a waitress. I'm about to order food with this woman in normal clothes, and the pub's flooded with police, about 20 police officers in there. Takes us away, keeps us for 3 days excommunicado in the...
So hold on a minute. So you were in there getting some food. You clocked a woman to you and thinking, this is not right. And you said there was 20 undercover old Bill waiting for you.
She was undercover.
Yep.
And then the rest of the uniformed officers rushed.
They all come in.
Yeah.
When they rushed you, what was going through your head?
I thought we're fine. They've got nothing on me.
Yeah,
I'm no problem. I've got nothing on me. What are they going to do to me?
So were you sending it out there?
So I had lads working for me doing the logistics. So they were completely out the area. So what we were doing is we were taking... So we're from Liverpool, but you start sending packages from Liverpool to Islands, it's red flag straight away. Yeah. But we're on the border of Wales. Yeah. So what we were doing is we were finding hardware companies on the border of Wales, and we were creating our own invoices on Photoshop to match their logos, to match the actual products that would match the weight of what we were sending, putting the return address for the actual shop address. So when customs look at this, everything was triple sealed in polythene. It was inside metal containers, so you were okay. Packaged really neatly, all the appropriate invoicing. The weight would check out perfectly, but the products that would be in there, spanner set, 1.5 kilo, whatever it is, check out perfectly. The price would check out perfectly. The right amount of customs duty had been paid. The return address was to the actual shop. Everything checked out, and we never had any issues. Now we get arrested, and I think, oh, I've got nothing. They've got nothing on me. I haven't touched anything whatsoever. You're not going to find my fingerprints on anything. You're not going to get anything off my phone. What I didn't anticipate was the guy that we were with being the biggest canary you could ever imagine, because he'd in his interview. Now me and Carl kept our stories.
Just roll that back a minute ago. The guy you were with was who?
So not Carl. So not the guy I'd gone over with. The guy that we had working for us in Jersey.
In Jersey, okay.
Who was a local lad to Liverpool.
Yeah.
But we'd sent him over to set up shop for us.
Okay.
Now, the three of us had been arrested because the third party, this other guy, had been under observation. So we get arrested. We goes in the police station. I managed to make a call back home to my grandmother. We're meant to be kept excommunicado, which means no contact out, so we can't notify anybody and impact the investigation. But the guy on the desk didn't know that. He accidentally let me get a phone call back home. So I rings my nan. Look, I've been arrested. I'll let you know when everything's okay. And my nan would have been 70 odd years of age at that point, and she knew exactly what to do. Yeah. So there was no agreement that had been set in place, but she knew what to do. She took my money, buried it, like 70-year-old woman.
Good old nan.
Yeah, good old nan, good old Scouse nan.
What's her name?
Barbara.
Give her a shout out. Yeah. Fair play. So she knew without even speaking.
There was nothing had been. Nothing had been prearranged, but she knew exactly what to do. Yeah. So Nan's done this. Police keep us in. Me and Carl stick to perfect stories, which again weren't pre-agreed. He runs through all that. The other guy just absolutely went to town. He's like, look, Nick's this gangster from Liverpool. He's the lad that he's with, his bodyguard. Like, Carl's just my friend. Yeah. But the picture he's painting to them, oh, you're never going to get him. He goes all around the world doing dodgy deals all the time. You look at my passport, because of all the free running work and stuff I've done, I've been all over the world. Okay, yeah. But you put that together, you look on my Facebook and see me in a brand new Range Rover. Obviously, all the countries I've been to, the brand new car, the image, everything that he's telling them, the bodyguard, like they think they're onto this big hitter now. But don't get me wrong, I was making good money and I was mixing in some nasty circles, but I wasn't no drug lord. And they keep interviewing us, interviewers. They got an arrest warrant via Merseyside police to go and raid my properties back at home, and obviously there was nothing there. And squad turned up at my grandmother's house. There was about 14 of them on a Saturday afternoon. They'd come through the front door, and there was nothing there other than this big safe that I had kept there. That's one of my favourite stories of that whole
safe empty.
In a manner of speaking. This is one of my favourite stories of that entire chapter of my life. Like, the police had, middle of the Saturday afternoon, big open wide road on a council estate. So they drag this safe out onto the front, and all the neighbours are watching. Big spectacle. And I'd say the reason we've gone to Jersey is because we were having troubles with the girl that I'd just been with, so we just split up, seeing somebody else, and we had a ton of sex toys at the time. Like, we had a wild sex life. And I didn't know whether we were completely splitting up or whether I didn't really know, but I just started dating somebody else, and I thought, I can't keep these in the apartment. What am I going to do with them? So I
in
bag
case the new bird finds out.
exactly, exactly, yeah. So I bag up all these sex toys. What the fuck can I do with these? I can't. If I bin them and then we get back together, how do I explain that?
Did you put them around your nan's house?
Well, I got a spare safe at my nan's. That's got nothing in it. So I put all these sex toys into the safe at my nan's and I lock it, and she doesn't know the code. So I thought, right, there's safe there. No one's going to find them. Nan doesn't know the code. No issues whatsoever. So the police have dragged this safe out now onto the front lawn on a Saturday afternoon. All the neighbours are watching on, and my nan said to me, like, they thought he did the jackpot. Thought it was going to be full of drugs, guns, cash, you name it. And they're banging the life out of this safe on the front garden with the big red key. What they ram the doors in, boom, 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 expecting this gold mine. And obviously the doors come off, just boom. Like the rubber dicks in a safe.
Quality.
And I think that's great. And I hope the officers that were there that day seen the funny side. You've got to, haven't you? Surely. So anyway, long story short, I goes on the run after that for a few months. They bailed us, didn't have anything on us at the time, asked me to go back.
Hold on a minute. So they bailed you, and then you went on the run.
Yes.
You're like, I'm not going to be floating around anymore.
Yeah.
Did you stop serving up?
No.
No, you're carrying on earning
what
money.
I was doing,
Where were you on the run? Whereabouts? Where'd you go to?
So I stayed in Merseyside, which in hindsight, not genius.
Yeah.
Put my car in storage, went into hiding, moving around different hotels, getting people to book me hotels in their names, and it was, it's glamorized in Hollywood, going on the lam, being on the run. Oh, this
stressful.
It's sexy. It's it's really romanticized. It's not.
It's stressful.
It's miserable.
Yeah.
Even with all the money in the world, you're sat in a hotel room. You can't contact anyone you care about. You can't go anywhere because you're going to get recognized. You're eating the same room service or the same crap restaurant food because you can't go out anywhere. Got this tiny TV, like it's just miserable. And I did that for like 3 months.
Why, if you were on bail, why'd you go on the run?
Because they asked me to come back to answer my bail. So it wasn't up
how
until
long was that?
about 2 months.
Okay.
And then they called up and said, we want you to come back for a second interview.
And that's when you went on the run?
That's when I knew.
Right, okay.
That's it now. They've asked me to go back over.
Okay. And so did you go back then, after that 2 months?
No.
So that's when you were properly on the run? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I did that for a few months. They told my solicitor they'd obtained a European arrest warrant for me. They were coming to get me. A couple of months went by, nothing, no sign of them. And I assumed at that point they were just bluffing. No issues. So I took my stuff out of storage, brought my car out of storage. I spoke to my mum. Because I'd just given up my apartment in time, because I had a 15-bedroom apartment in Liverpool city centre at the time, just to feed into the ego and everything.
15 bed.
Yeah, on 3 floors it was. Yeah, it was transitioning between being some sort of hospital facility into student accommodation, and I had it in the interim. So I had 3 floors, 5 bedrooms on each. It was wild. Yeah. But again, that all fed into this big gangster 15-bedroom apartment.
Were you using at the time?
No.
So you were roided up still?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you weren't using cocaine, ecstasy, you weren't using anything?
And I've never tried cocaine in my life, funnily enough.
Okay. How was that? How was the roids? How did the roids affect you? You've jumped in as a 19, 20-year-old kid, really. You've turned into a big lump because you've got natural strength and you've got great genetics. You've got on the roids, whacked on 3 stone. How difficult was it for you? Did you ever get the fear around you? You're dealing with the lads who were peaking in the 80s and 90s, who were big lumps, ex-gangsters, faces around there. Did you ever get the fear around that? Did you ever get the fear that someone was bullying you in to do something, or the fear of, if you carry on that, I'm going to be robbing you soon?
It would probably be convenient for me to say yes, but I think I was so lost in my own ego that I didn't care.
Okay.
Like I'd convinced myself I was everything that I was trying to be, and I was so immersed in watching Sopranos and Godfather and cartel documentaries, and this is just so addictive, and listening to that type of music. I'd always listen to rap music, but then it really kind of, you're playing it out then, and it's very easy to get yourself lost, and the steroids just amplified every insecurity that I already had, which they tend to do. And it was a particular type of steroid that I think really changed me, and that's something called Trenbolone.
Okay.
Which is a very, very, very dangerous compound, in my opinion. And the issue was at the time, and even these days, you didn't have access to the literature that you do today in terms of safe usage, what you can take, what you can't take, what you should, what you shouldn't, what the risks are. There was none of that back then. You just had Big Dave in the gym saying, right,
whack that in,
take 10 of them.
Yeah. And what sort of meal were you putting in yourself a day?
Across a week, it was probably about 2 grams, 2.5 grams, so about 2,500 milligrams of gear, plus oral tablets on top, plus insulin on top, plus growth hormone on top, plus sleeping tablets every night to get to sleep. So I was
God.
taking like 60, 70, 80 milligram of diazepam every night just to counter the sleeping issues that you get from trenbolone. The trenbolone is derived from, I might be slightly off here, but I think it's derived from something called Finaplex, and it's pellets that they pump cattle with to maintain weight from A to B, when they're in long haul transport. And the way that, the impact that has on the brain is that because of the way that it converts, it prohibits or inhibits even, hang on, losing myself here. It prohibits your brain's ability to produce dopamine and serotonin at its normal rate. So you struggle to get happy, you struggle to be at peace, you struggle to feel excited, you struggle to climax sexually. It really impacts your sleep. It gives you night terrors, it gives you paranoia. So everything horrible that you can possibly imagine is within this compound.
And you were whacking all that in you?
Because I knew nothing better. I didn't know anything better at the time whatsoever. And that's no excuse, but I very quickly lost my personality because like what it did to me in terms of paranoia and rage and anxiety, like it turned me from one type of person to a completely different type of person.
What, within a second?
Not within a second. Within a gradual course of a few weeks, it changed me so quickly.
Could you flip in a second? That was my point there. Could you just turn into ag straight away?
On trenbolone, yeah. Okay. Definitely.
Did you enjoy that?
I did at the time, yeah. Because you don't see what's wrong with that, and you start to really thrive off that. Everyone else is wrong but you. And
where were you taken out of them? Were you banging people out on the doors and having tear-ups, looking for tear-ups, winding people up on the door when they were coming in?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'd be on the doors, and I think obviously you get a lot of men that suffer from little man syndrome on the doors, and they're looking for that same thing. Yeah. But I'd go to work at 10 o'clock and I'd just be waiting for midnight for people to get rowdy and just waiting for an opportunity just to release. Yeah. And it sounds quite dramatic. Your concept of pain changes as well. Like you just hit me. And you know what I mean? You really, really want to like just get stuck in. And I'd experimented with a lot of steroids over the 10 years that I was training, and nothing compares to that stuff. And I lads that I speak to all the time, because it don't get me wrong, it's super potent, and for its anabolic benefits, there's nothing as good as that.
Could you give me an example of that trenbolone? I'm still interested in that trenbolone. If someone took trenbolone now who's training in the gym, how long would they have to take it for to notice huge improvements in weight gain, in strength, in muscle, etc.?
2 weeks.
Bloody hell.
It's 7 times more potent than testosterone, milligram for milligram. So it's 7 times stronger than just normal testosterone on its own, what you get off the doctor, what you get on hormone replacement therapy. It's 7 times stronger, but obviously it carries, you get 2 arms to most steroids that are used in a performance enhancing environment. You get the anabolic side of the drug and the androgenic side of the drug. Now the anabolic is obviously just the muscle building aspects of it, which is great, fantastic. But when you get the certain compounds that have a high androgenic properties, that's when you start getting the rage and the hair growth and the increased sex drive and everything else, all the negative stuff that you really don't want. And trenbolone is highly androgenic, and that's when you run into these dangers, because it's so efficient and so effective. That's why so many people take it, but the vast majority of them just don't know. Yeah. And the reason they don't know is because, unfortunately, we're in a climate within the fitness industry where people just lie about absolutely everything. Yeah. And I lost my sponsorship with Optimum Nutrition in 2014 because I'd always been open about my steroid use. Not in a sense of trying to encourage it, just in a sense of, look, if you're going to do it safely. Yeah. This is what I do. This is what I've experienced. And I think that's the best. I think transparency is the best way forward for damage limitation. And I got called to a board meeting with Optimum Nutrition in 2014 down to London, into this big executive room, and they sat me down. One of their main directors, and she was like, Nick, I've got to ask you something, and it's an odd question to ask, but we've been told that you take steroids, like really, really taboo, hush. Yeah. And I just looked at this woman. She's a really nice woman. I was like, how do you want me to answer this? Do you want me to answer this honestly, or do you want me to answer this of how you as a brand want me to answer this? And she's like, oh, no, I answer honestly. I said, well, of course I'm on steroids. I'm the junior British bodybuilding champion. And she just looked at me in complete awe, not in disgust, just complete shock. Like, wow, it's real. He's actually taking steroids. And I'd just come out of, we'd not long been to Body Power with Optimum Nutrition, which is one of the biggest.
Up in Birmingham.
Yeah. The NEC, probably the biggest fitness event in the country. We'd just been there, and I'd been with maybe a dozen of their athletes, mostly men. we went out for dinner one of the evenings and we're talking, and they're all talking about what cycles they're taking and everything else. And obviously the execs weren't there at the time. And I'm sat there in front of this woman. I'm like, you've got 20 of us athletes on your website. I said, 90% of us are taking some sort of performance enhancing drug. And she just looked at me in complete disbelief. No. And that's the problem that you get, is that so many people hide the fact that they are taking what they're taking. And you can't physically look, the way some of these top fitness influencers look, you cannot physically look like that naturally. Yeah. You just, it defies all laws, all biology.
Do you know when you're looking at someone in a magazine that they're on roids or not?
It's difficult to tell from a magazine without having context, without them standing next to somebody.
Okay.
Because you could look super jacked, ripped, and massive cap shoulders, but that guy could be 5'4".
Yeah, okay.
And really lean.
Yeah. It's
not until you see them in person that you kind of can gauge, right? Okay, yeah, you're clearly.
So if you saw 20 fellas there just in the gym with a vest on, would you be at a clock straight away?
For the most part, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, there are
and it's rife, right?
Yeah.
In the UK,
it's so right. I think we have might be slightly over-egging it here, but not by much. There's about 2.5 million steroid users in the UK.
Is that what it is?
Yes. And that's data that's come from the sharps exchanges at pharmacies.
My God.
Because obviously they register your postcode and everything else. We've got about 2.5 million, which is huge.
Mate, I saw James Smith say something the other day, saying that 500,000 teenagers are using steroids.
That sounds about right, yeah.
My God.
And that's horrifying. And the reason why it's so horrifying is the lack of information available for them people. And it is better than it used to be.
Yeah.
But the only kind of people talking about it are the super way down the rabbit hole juice heads, 20 odd stone, destroyed themselves.
Yeah. Who's been there, got the t-shirt.
This is what I take. And it really is getting a lot better than it used to be, but you still have most of the leading fitness influencers saying, no, I just eat my chicken and my broccoli, just, buy my training plan. This is all that you need. And all that does is encourage the body dysmorphia and the self-worth issues. I bought your training plan. I'm doing exactly what you told me to do. Why
am I not?
Why am I not good enough? Am I broken? Is something wrong with me?
Yeah.
And then on the flip side of that, you have people who are like, well, he must be taking loads, so I need to take loads.
Yeah, okay.
So you've either got people whose self-worth is absolutely destroyed because you're false advertising, or people that are assuming you're taking 10 times more than you are and putting themselves at massive risk of X, Y, and Z. And then to add to that, you then have other fitness influencers who are anti-steroid, who are slating steroids like there's no tomorrow. And I know these guys personally, and what they don't tell you is every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday they're sticking tons of coke up their nose.
Yeah, okay.
And it's like, you're a hypocrite. Yeah. Like it's okay if you're opposed to people taking in performance enhancing drugs. I can entirely understand that position, but don't sit there on your high horse when at the weekend you're doing something 10 times detrimental. Testosterone's going to do less damage than cocaine's going to do.
Do you know influencers who are saying they don't use, but they do use?
Yes, and there are a lot of them who have it written into their contract that they're not to use because that protects the brand, but the brand is fully aware that they take. Wow. But they have it written in the contract to protect them, because if anyone says, well, I know he's taking steroids, well, he signed here to say that he's not.
Yeah. And we believe
he's definitely not. Yeah. I mean, it's here in black and white. Well, he wouldn't lie to us.
We wouldn't link our brand with that. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
And that's the problem that you have, and that's the only kind of pass that you could give to them athletes, is that if they are open about it, they lose their sponsorships. So you're stuck in a catch-22 of, do I mislead the public and mislead my audience? And some of these people have millions in their audience. Do I mislead people, or do I be honest, and do I lose my bread and butter? Do I lose my sponsorships? So the whole industry needs a shift in, right, we're going to stop hiding from the elephant in the room. It is a taboo subject. We don't want to encourage it, but we do need education, because education is the only way that we stop people falling into these issues. Because if we do have 500,000 teenagers taking steroids, we do have 2.5 million people taking performance enhancing drugs in the UK. When you come off drugs like that, if you're not taking the correct PCT protocol, if you're not bringing your body back to where it needs to be and doing the right things at the right time, you run a high risk of having suicidal tendencies, permanent damage. And for women, it's tenfold. It's so much worse. The side effects for men, for the most part, are reversible. For women, they very rarely are. You lose your ability to produce children, to conceive. You're getting a large clitoris, you get a deepened voice. And once stuff like that happens, there's no coming back. That's you for life, never having children. And I see girls now who are dieting themselves down. These girls in their early 20s, dieting to the point where they're losing all their breast tissue. They're really struggling. They stop ovulating. And I'm like, for what? So you can go and get this tin trophy on stage. Great, fantastic. And that might be good for the next 2 years. But when you're getting closer to 30 and you want a family, and you just got married, and you've got to have that conversation with your partner of, we can't have children.
Yeah.
Because when I was 23, I decided to take X, Y, and Z because I wanted to get on stage in a bikini and win this show.
Yeah. For what?
And that's devastating.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
For what?
Why?
Yeah, I agree. I wouldn't mind if I understand if a girl was going, you're going to win that show, you're going to get £500,000, or there's not even any money in it.
There's no money in bodybuilding.
It's madness. I want to roll back, Nick. When you were on bail and you were on the run, what was the point when you got nicked and they found you, or you held your hands up and you were still using steroids? Because that's where we stemmed this from, the whole steroids thing, that you were paranoid, you were still using while on the run.
Yeah.
What happened there?
So they eventually arrested me. I come out of hiding.
Where were you when they arrested you?
I was in my mum's house. They pulled me a few days before at the tunnel that separates Liverpool from the Wirral, the two boroughs of Merseyside, and they'd swarmed my car. They blocked the tunnel off between the two boroughs, and I thought, this is it, they've got me. Yeah. What had actually happened in that situation, they eventually let me go, but what had happened was they'd AMPR'd my car. Jersey police had requested it and said, look, if you catch him in this car, let us know, and we'll fly over the next day so we know we can find him just by his reg plate. But when they pulled me, I thought, this is it, they've got me.
Yeah.
But they didn't. They let me go, and I thought, all right, I'm good. Next day, door goes in, Jersey police, Merseyside police, 15 of them in the house. You know, they were decent guys. Jersey police, they're
they
very...
carrying?
No. Jersey police weren't, because they've got no jurisdiction in Liverpool.
Okay.
Now, but Jersey's very much a one-horse town.
Yeah.
It's 9 by 5 miles,
Yeah,
and they're all nice. Do you know what I mean? They're nice guys. They're not like Merseyside police.
I think the jail there holds about 100 people, doesn't it?
120.
120, that's right.
Yeah. And that's like Butlins, that place, like Pontins, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
So they arrest me anyway, and they were decent with me, and I just had one of the Merseyside police downstairs say, did he want his phones? Because I had like 3 mobiles on the side, some cash, some laptops, and he just said, no, they've got more than enough. And it was at that point here and that I was like, oh, okay, I'm fucked. I'm absolutely fucked.
Yeah.
So he flies me to Jersey, takes me through John Lennon Airport in Liverpool, cuffed up, proper dramatic, looked like a terrorist, marched through the airport, onto the plane.
What, on a normal plane?
On a commercial EasyJet flight, yeah.
Was it?
Yeah. There's no secret passageways or nothing like that. You are marched through the airport, handcuffed, and it is full Hannibal Lecter. Everyone looking at you, assuming the worst. Yeah, you're getting marched down the plane. They even asked to go to the toilet halfway through the flight. They're like, we have to go with you. Where am I going?
Yeah.
Where am I going? So I had one officer in front of me, one behind me, walk me to the bathroom, and everyone's looking at me like, oh, terrorist. Yeah, like what else would you possibly be, being escorted on a plane for? Murderer.
Yeah.
Gets to Jersey. They don't even bother giving me a second interview.
What year are we talking here?
This is now October 2014.
14, okay.
October 22nd, 2014.
Okay.
And the reason I remember that is because I spent that one night in the cop shop, and the very next day, which was my birthday, was my first day in jail. And that was grim.
Yeah.
And all I had... My only concept of prison at this point was Prison Break, Shawshank Redemption, like really gritty American old school jails. So I'm trying to hype myself up for this, and the realization hit you of, I'm not a gangster.
Yeah.
I'm not a big boy. I'm about to go into big boy territory here, and how much bravado can you possibly front to try and maintain that image? Because it's all good and well outside when you've got friends around you, and you've got that image, and everything else. I've got the boys.
Yeah.
You're nobody. So I'm building myself up to walk into these Shawshank halls, when the reality was I get into Jersey prison and it's like a holiday camp. It is like a holiday. Sky Sports in your cell, big touchscreen TV, not what I was expecting at all.
Yeah.
Charges at the time were importation of Class B methadone. Duty advocates, duty solicitor said to me, oh, maybe 18 months. It's not the end of the world. And even to me, I'm like, 18 months, that's a long time.
Yeah.
Been in there 5 days. Officer comes to the door. A solicitor wants you to bring her. Phones her. She's like, oh, there's been some extra charges added. I said, okay, well, explain to me what that means. He's like, well, there's an additional count of conspiracy to import cannabis and 2 counts of conspiracy to import ecstasy, Class A. I said, okay, well, how much does that change things? What are we looking at now? Like 2 years. She's like, oh, well, the maximum penalty for that is 14 years. Wow.
Oh, mate.
Wow, hit me like a ton of
Yeah,
bread. I'm like, 14 years. And obviously I've got no understanding of the prison system or the legal system at this point, so I don't understand what that means. And even if you were to get 14 years, you'd serve 7.
Yeah.
Of that 7, you'd do 3 years in an open jail. So it's 4 years in jail. But to any layman, 14 years.
Of course. Or even 7.
Even 7, yeah.
You know
A
what I
year
mean?
is enough.
Yeah, a year.
So I goes back to my cell to try and process this in my head. And I'd been in nearly a week now, and my hormones had just started to taper down, and I'm sat there with this plastic blue bowl of cornflakes, and it's one of the moments that really sticks with me. And I remember trying to eat because I was starving, because I'm used to having such a calorie dense diet, and I'm eating these cornflakes and I'm crying my eyes out into my bowl of cornflakes, trying to get my head around this 14 years. And I remember just eating my cornflakes and crying. I remember tasting the salt from my tears in the cornflakes and kind of laughing at myself whilst I was crying. And that's one of the moments that sticks with me. And anyway, long story short, I'd been in maybe 4 months as we were coming up to sentencing, and by this point now, my contact with all that older world had started to drop off. Yeah. And the realization was quite a sudden one of the transition that I'd made from the original person to this bad guy back to the person I was, and that was the picture board that I had on my cell wall in the prison, and it's maybe 2 meters wide by 1 meter high. And when I first come in, I had everyone sending me pictures, the champagne parties, the fancy cars, everybody together in big gangs. And I had this big wall of fancy pictures and all the jewelry and the flamboyant lifestyle. And over a period of time, these first few months that I was away, and I didn't notice this as a gradual change, then people started to slowly drop off, and the people that I had lost contact with, it slowly started to pop back up. Yeah. They contact my family. How's Nick doing? How do I get in touch?
What, the free runner lads?
Yeah.
Your mates,
my proper mates, our old school friends. They'd slowly start to get in touch with my family again. Like, how is he? Like, people that actually cared. Because obviously when you first go away, it's exciting for people, which is sad that it is. But as I say, Hollywood have romanticized it so much as, my friend's in jail, the big bad guy, and everyone, it's great, it's fantastic. That hype dies after about 2 weeks, and then you get forgotten about so quickly. So they started to drop off, and slowly I'd take pictures down from the wall, and I knew one to come my old free running friends of us in whatever country it is, and that would go up. And I didn't notice the gradual change. And it wasn't until I was coming up to sentencing that it really hit me. And I looked up at the board, and for whatever reason, I was thinking of that life and the previous life, and I look up at the board and I'm like, wow, there's nothing left. Yeah. None of that life is up there at all. And I hadn't, for whatever reason, because my head was so clouded at the time, my hormones were up the wall because I'd gone cold turkey from steroids, so I was super suicidal. I was crying my eyes out all the time for no reason. My estrogen levels were through the roof. My testosterone was flatlined. I was in a really bad way. So I hadn't noticed this. I hadn't been conscious enough to notice the gradual change. And just as I'm coming around from it, I just look up, and it's an entire wall, 2x1 meter, of all my original friends, and all them old pictures had come down and come down and come down. And that's when it was like, wow, what have all that happened in the last 18 months? The people that I've hurt, the people that I've lost. And here I am, here now, and all of them people have disappeared. Nobody's bothered to keep in touch. All these people that I've spent a fortune on, and the people that were there from the beginning that have had no materialistic or monetary benefit of everything that had gone over the last 18 months. So they hadn't benefited from anything that I'd done. They're the ones that had reached out. How are you doing? What do you need? Yeah. Do you need anything?
I'm here for you.
Yeah,
I'm your
exactly.
pal.
Yeah, here's
Your
my number.
original
Ring me.
pal.
Yeah. I'll put £10 in your account. Do you know what I mean?
Did that all happen in 18 months?
Yeah.
My God. Okay. So what were you, when you were Nick then? Were you 23, 24?
My first day in prison was my 24th birthday.
24th. Yeah. So from roughly 21 to 24 or 22, 24, around those years.
It was about 2 years probably, all in.
You sacked you off your old mates, got this whole new world for the ego, roided up, doorman, wanted tear-ups, and all of a sudden, bang, 18 months Nick.
Yeah. Open and close that quickly. Like, the contrast was night and day.
That's a whirlwind, right?
It is. And that the next 2.5 years that I spent in prison, I did 10 months in Jersey.
What did they give you in the end?
6 years.
They gave you 6 in the end.
Gave me 6
so
in the end.
So you knew you were going to do a 3?
Yeah.
Okay. In Jersey?
No. So I transferred back home, because if I'd have stayed in Jersey, I'd have done 4 years, because they served 2/3. So it was either stay.
Why? Because it's a cushy number?
Their law's different.
Okay.
Yeah, the law's just different there. But if you get repatriated and come back to the UK, you serve 50%.
Okay.
Half of which you can serve in an open jail. Yeah. And I knew from stories that I'd heard from lads who were in the Jersey prison who'd been in the UK system, oh, you don't want to go there. You do not want to go. What you've got here isn't jail. Yeah. He's like, you do not want to go there. But in my head, I'm thinking, well, do I want to spend 4 years behind the door here? Yeah. Or do I want to roll the dice and get home a bit quicker? And I made the decision to roll the dice, transfer back to the UK. 10 months in, first day pulling up to HMP Liverpool was fucking terrifying. So they just picked me up at the tarmac of Manchester Airport on an EasyJet flight, armed police waiting at the bottom of the plane, which in itself straight away was intimidating. And I marched down in my handcuffs and big rifles at the bottom, get me in the car. An hour journey in the car. They wouldn't tell me where I was going, so I didn't know if I was going to Strangeways in Manchester or I was going to HMP Liverpool. And in my head, I'm like, okay.
What were you hoping for?
I was kind of hoping for Strangeways, to be honest. So I thought, I'll get to Strangeways in Manchester, and if anyone asks, I'm going to tell them I'm from Cheshire, and I'll just try and blend in. Just head down, job done. But no, HMP Liverpool it was, and we pull up, and you've just got this little window at the side of in the wagon, and you look up, and it is Shawshank. It's this old Victorian building with, you know, bars all on the windows, like barbed wire everywhere. Like, it's horrifying. It's like 5-6 stories high. I get in there. Within 3 days of being there was a guy that was just plunged in the heart about 4 times, come past me on a stretcher, blood gushing everywhere. This was all over a £50 phone that had been stolen on the wing, and someone had just plunged in multiple times in the heart. Comes past me. I've only been here 4 days. I've been in Jersey 10 months. And I haven't seen anybody fight. I've been playing tennis and watching Sky Sports. And somebody's nearly dead in front of me, and that's kind of how the time in Liverpool went, because it's chaos. And anybody that tells you jail isn't terrifying, they're just talking shit. It is absolutely terrifying.
For what you know now, would you have rather done 2/3 in Jersey or 50% in Liverpool?
I had a really easy run by chance, because I only spent a few months in Liverpool and then a few months in Rochdale in a category C, and then I eventually got to an open prison for 20 months. And that goes back to being like Pontons again. So I only really done 6 months of proper hard jail, at least in my opinion. So no, I think definitely made the right decision. Come back over, and obviously the rest of that journey through prison was me getting back to the person that I was originally. And I to this day I remain grateful for that sentence, because I'd have just ended up dead, or with a sentence 10 times longer. I'd have just killed somebody, because the path that I was going down, being so obsessive with the gangs and the drugs and the guns, everything, it was just like it just really wanted it all the time, and it had consumed me so much that me getting arrested at that point in my life is probably the best thing that had happened to me in the last 10 years.
So after 18 months, get arrested rather than be 3 or 4 years. You'd have been deeper.
I'd have ended up shot somebody, or I'd have been ported 10 times the amount. Like, me getting arrested at that time was probably the best time for it to happen. So I do my 3 years away, and I come out a completely different person. I disconnected from everybody in that life. I hadn't kept contact with anybody whatsoever. I made a couple of friends while I was away, because despite what popular opinion may be, there are some really interesting, decent people in jail who've just made some mistakes. And there's some fascinating characters. There's some serious entrepreneurs. Not everybody's just slinging bits on the street. Some guys have set up multinational companies, and there's some really interesting people you'll meet, and once you find them little diamonds in the dirt, you can spend all day with them and just listen to their stories. It's exactly what you do. Do you know what I mean? It's fascinating. So I made a few friends in there, killed some time with, but then when I got out, I didn't really keep contact with anybody. And the norm is, we'll speak to each other when we get out. You don't really do it, So I got out, and in the weeks coming up to me getting out, the guy that owned the local bodybuilding gym in my town, a good friend of mine, a fella from Glasgow, he'd got in touch and said, "Look, Nick, I'm looking to sell the gym." Well, I am selling the gym, he told me. He said, we're going through the deal now, whatever else. I was like, why didn't you ask me? He's like, could you get the funds? I was like, well, maybe. I said, but you didn't ask me, did you? So I thought nothing of it. A couple of weeks went by. Must have been about a month away from getting out, and he's like, the deals fell through. What you think? So he come up to visit me, and we had a conversation about the business and what it entails, what he wanted for it. And I said, look, I can give you half of what the business is worth. I said, you keep the other half. Show me the ropes, and I'll buy you out the other half of the business gradually, and then go from there. And he was in a rush to get back to Glasgow because his wife's parents had just taken ill. So he wanted out straight away, and he obviously didn't want to sell half the business, but he's like, look, Nick, I trust you. I know you're from the town. I've known you a long enough time. I know you're a good lad. I would like, it was his baby. It was like he was in his 50s, ex-director of a gas and oil company. It was just a something to play with. He had plenty of money. He's like, I'd like it to go to you because it's something that's important to me. I know it's in good hands. He's like, I'll tell you what, I'll give you the half on the basis that I'll spend 2 weeks with you, but then you let me go to Glasgow and I have no involvement and you pay me off as and when. I was like, well, let's do it. Yeah. Straight away I can get out and I can get into something positive. But I wasn't going to come out and allow that business to be what encouraged me to go down the path I went down in the first place. I didn't want it to be a dark bodybuilding gym, and I like the whole ethos of it being spitting sawdust and training hard and old school discipline. I like that, but I don't like the cult aspect to it. I don't like that. So when I come out, I bought half the business.
What was the membership like when you took it over?
It was in a decent place and there wasn't a lot of competition at the time, and there's been a lot more pop-ups since I bought it, because obviously the fitness industry has expanded. It's probably double now what it was then.
But the clientele, what was the clientele when you took it over? Did you have to have a word with a couple of them, say, I don't want you here, or how was it?
It was just changing, and I tried to go about it in a, rather than a confrontational way, more of a bringing in that parkour free running ethos of like, we need to encourage people, need to encourage each other. We started hosting community events, encouraging people to socialize outside the gym in a healthy context, encouraging people to encourage each other. And it took off really well, because I think people were hungry for something like that. Because as much as we all like, we from time to time, probably everybody falls victim to the whole ego thing and constantly checking themselves out. But deep down, a lot of people were just looking for somewhere to go, something to be involved in. Community. Yeah, as I say, we've lost the community centres. We've lost the, there isn't as many pubs anymore. And obviously back in the days, and you know better than I do, that was the place to go. And it wasn't so much I'm going there just to get leathered. It was, that's where people go. Yeah. I'm going to go and see my friends after work. And that's kind of what, and there are still some fantastic pubs out there, but in our area, we don't have many anymore. So the gym has become the modern day pub in our area. So people will finish work and they'll come in just for a chat, and you'll find they'll spend 20 minutes working out, 40 minutes talking at the desk, just to let go. Before I go home to the missus and kids, I just want a bit of bro time. And that's what I mean. People were desperate for that community aspect, but nobody really wanted to go, right, we should maybe take a new direction with how we are, within the gym, within the lack of community that there was at the time. And that transition from what was known as like the hardcore bodybuilding gym into the community gym, or into the people's gym that we call it today. Like, it was a really smooth transition, which I wasn't anticipating. And with that, we brought in a whole new batch of clientele. It's gone from not just being just big guys and girls who are super serious about it to everybody's welcome. Yeah. And it took off really well, and the business started doing really well. And I paid Paul off really quickly, because obviously I've just spent 3 years in jail living off tins of tuna, packets of noodles, absolute bare basics, probably living on, I was okay financially, but you don't waste in prison. You know what I mean? It's like, well, what can I actually buy? You can't buy steaks, you can't buy chips, you can't live a flamboyant lifestyle in prison. You just get used, you acclimatise to the, right, what am I having for dinner? I'm having a 40 pence pack of noodles and a 60 pence tin of tuna and a happy shopper 60 pence bottle of cordial to last me the week. Do you know what I mean? And you realise that the expenditure that you normally consider, the average, the norm, what everybody does, is just completely unnecessary. So when I come out...
When you come out, what size were you? When you went in, what size were you? At 19 stone plus. When you come out, obviously no roids inside you for 3 years. What weight were you coming out?
I think I was about 5 stone lighter.
Really?
I looked about 10 years younger, yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm. I went in looking like this scary meathead, and I come out looking like Justin Bieber.
Yeah.
And I literally looked 10 years, I'll send you the photo later, I looked 10 years younger. It is the contrast is...
But you're in blinding nick, right? In probably one of the best nick people I know in the country, as you sit today. Would you prefer to be as you sit today, or that 19 stone lump?
No, I look back on that with the big juicy fat face.
Fat face, yeah.
Yeah, that's not my vibe at all. But I did permanent damage to my pituitary gland from all that steroid abuse, which is why I'm such an advocate on people being open about it now, because I will be on testosterone replacement therapy for the rest of my life.
Really? Because
of the damage that I did. So I'm now under an endocrinologist who monitors my bloods, checks my, the monitors everything to see what my luteinizing hormones are and everything else, where my levels sit at. And I'll probably be on that for the rest of my life, and that's because of how much I abused back in the days. So I am living testimony to it isn't all fun and games.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm such a strong advocate for it. So,
did you have any knock-on effects when you come out of prison, going straight in and saying, I want to buy this business? Were the people going, I don't want to be involved with him? I don't want to involve with that. Was there members thinking, oh, he's just come out of Nick?
I think because a lot of time had passed, it wasn't really a thing. And I'd come from that community. So people had this contrasting view of me of you know, Jekyll and Hyde.
Yeah.
We know what he was. We know what he went into. Maybe this is him from before.
Okay.
And obviously I had a lot to prove. And I knew that. I couldn't just come back to my community and go, hi guys, it's me again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Trust me, I'm a nice guy now. And that's why I tried so hard to really, really encourage that community aspect again. And you know, I've done a ton of charity work, a ton of community work, just to demonstrate that, look, I'm back.
Yeah.
And I'm genuine. And I am eternally apologetic for where I let myself go and what direction I took. And people accommodated that. And as I said, the business did really well. And I managed to pay Paul off really quickly because I was living off bare basics when I come out, because I continued that prison mentality of, I can live off absolutely nothing. Let's get the other half of this business bought. Let's invest everything after that. So every bit of salary that I took and every bit of profit that I took through my directorship, straight back in, bought Paul out as quickly as possible, spent a ton of money, completely revamped the gym, spent a fortune on it. And people could really see that my interest was genuine, and it was fantastic ever since. And the years that followed, I got out October 2017, and the 2.5 years that followed that were super positive. And obviously then we enter into the COVID era. But them 2.5 years I really felt like myself again. I felt like, right, I've gone through this journey, I've gone through this roller coaster of having this really troubled youth, and then come up and have this you know, this success through free running, and overachieved completely, and had the community behind me, and then lost myself completely, lost my friends, lost my family, you know, and then come back full circle again, found myself hopefully even better than I was to begin with, give back to my community. And then
your mum, we haven't touched on your mum. What have you put your mum through with this whole period?
We don't have a lot of contact. Well, we have no contact anymore. My relationship with my mum is closer to that of brother and sister than it is mother and son. Obviously, my dad left when I was about 2 years old. Relationship with mum is more of a sibling type. So mum got pregnant with me at 15. Had me at 16. I grew up on a council estate, living with mum, single mum, working 2 jobs. I get to 7, 8 years old. I'm getting sexually abused by a guy who's twice my age. I'd have been about 8 at the time. He was about 16. Mark, his name was. Mum didn't even recognize any of this was going on. This went on for about a year. And I think subconsciously I resented her for that, and for not being aware of what was happening. Because she walked in on it at one point, and it was like she was oblivious to it completely. And she wasn't a great mother, but I say that, and I always need to give context to the fact that I wouldn't have been a great father at 16 either.
Yeah, it's young, isn't it?
It is young, and it's too young. And it's, in my opinion, at least for most people, it's too young to expect people to have the necessary levels of maturity and life experience to be a parent. So I don't, as an adult now, I don't resent her in the slightest for her shortcomings, because I'd have done even worse, I'm sure. And then
do you feel that sexual abuse at that age played a part into the anger and everything that you actually turned into?
My therapist seems to think so. I've never really thought about it much. So from when that ended in 1999, I never spoke about that up until 2016, seeing a counsellor in prison. Never spoke about it, never thought about it. Only at one point, maybe when I was about 12, 13, I remember my mum coming to me. I was in the living room with my mum and her partner, and she was saying, oh, we bumped into Mark today in the supermarket. Remember Mark? Oh, he's gay now, did you know? I said, well, you should have kind of picked up on that, many years ago, kind of thing. But I assume, and I didn't do this consciously, I assume I've just compartmentalized that, left it where it was, and that might have been the catalyst for a lot of the ways that I acted, because a lot of my trouble kind of stemmed out the back of that same kind of time frame. So maybe so, and I've never kind of dwelled on it too much, because I don't know, because I'm really happy with the person that I am today. I don't know what benefit I would have from unpacking that psychologically. I'm kind of like, I'm really happy with where I am today and the whole journey that I've been on, and there's very little that I regret, because I wouldn't want to change where I am now. So I don't really want to, I've never really thought, right, I need to sit down and I need to really go into that, because what am I going to take from it? unless there was still problems in my life, I'd be like, right, well, if there's something underlying here, I need to assess what's happening.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, our relationship has always been.
Did your mum come and visit you?
She did.
She did. Okay.
She did. So we lost contact for a while, and then she crops up again, and then disappears again, and she's as inconsistent as I am in many ways. Yeah. But her style of parenting, or her lack of parenting style, enabled me the freedom to go on and do the free running that I wanted to do. And had she been a you know, had an orthodox style of parenting, I'd have gone to school Monday to Friday, and I never would have had the opportunities that I had. I wouldn't have mixed with the lads who I was training with who were older than me. I never would have got to France. I never would have got that discipline. I never would have had the opportunity to work around the world for some of the biggest brands in the globe. I never would have had any of that. Yeah. So
you had the freedom, didn't you?
I had the freedom that I needed. Yeah. And whether she had the foresight to know that that's what I needed, or whether that was just a fortunate or unfortunate series of events, I have to always be grateful for that, because that enabled me to completely overachieve and excel beyond anything that anyone in my school had ever done. And I will always be grateful for that. And I'll never look at that situation or my childhood and say, you done me wrong. Because she didn't. She done me right. She did exactly what I needed her to do at that time. And how do you measure a successful parent? Is it based on grades? You know, is it life fulfillment? Is it happiness? Is it excitement? Is it adventure? What is it? Because I've had everything and I regret nothing, and I've had one of the most interesting lives out of all the friends that I've got, and I'm super grateful for it, and I wouldn't change a thing. So you can be glass half full, or you can be glass half empty. You could say, oh, she was a terrible parent, Nick got sexually abused, he didn't go to school, he got no grades. Or glass half full, she gave him the freedom he needed, he overachieved, he's been around the world, he's done everything, seen everything, made every newspaper in the world, and he's really happy with where he is today, and he's successful. So
good for you, man. This has been really interesting. That's some eventful life you've packed in a very short space of time.
I'm trying,
isn't it, mate? I really appreciate you coming. Where can people find you, Nick?
Instagram for the meanwhile, just Nick Capo, 2 underscores. That's me.
Yeah, mate, you're a gentleman. I appreciate you coming down here today. Superstar, mate, and I wish you all the best moving forwards.
Thank you.
If there's anything I can do to help moving forwards, mate, you got my number.
Thank you very much, brother.
You're a
Thank
gentleman.
you for your time.
Nice one. Good man, Nick. Cheers, fella.
Thank you.